What I find fascinating is the number of people that turn everything into a competition, and everybody views life as competition. I think it changes once you get much, much older, for a lot of people, but early on, um, and maybe it doesn't change at all, I don't know, but um, early on, a lot of people are so focused on getting ahead and focusing on being the best, or my team's the best, or, you know, we're the winners. Like all of this language, it's really, really, I mean, first of all, this was one of the most striking things I noticed. We noticed when we came to America from Canada, um, is the number of people that did that. But I mean, it's not to say that that wasn't the case in Canada. It was just a lot more subtle, right? And it's just a lot more out in the open. But the number of people that are just, it's straight out. I like this term, peacocking, right? Where there's no inherent value in that, and there's some flaws. There's there's some value in terms of it being motivating to get ahead, whatever that is, whatever that means. But um, the challenge lies in the fact that you get wrapped up in the game itself, and then you try to manipulate the parameters of the game, right? You think about the rules of the game and you try to do everything to get around that. And you see this in all walks of life. Um, you see this in, gym rats, for example. I'm not using a derogatory term. I was a gym rat for many, many years. Um, gym rats getting really big. Um, and you're like, what is going on here? That's unusually strange, right? And they're taking all sorts of weird and questionable um, s- substances, and all of a sudden you get really big by doing that kind of stuff. Um, you know, you see it in the cars that people drive, right? Like, what? Who cares? Um, and and it's fine. I am a big believer in buying an enjoyable car that you really love, but with the fact that you can actually buy the damn thing, right? Like everybody is on payments, um, and they're one month away of this whole thing falling apart, right? And they're not questioning what the hell, right? Um, we see it in the houses that people buy. They have gotten increasingly bigger for smaller families. Right? Families have shrunken over the last, even the last 50 years. Right? They've shrunken. They've gotten smaller. We don't need the big houses anymore, and yet the houses have gotten extraordinary big compared to what the uses. Square footage continues to climb on many houses, and then we sort of question, like, why is it so hard to buy a house? Well, you're just buying a bigger asset. Um, we see this in sort of parent talk in terms of my kid is doing better than your kid, and we see this in team talk or whatever, right? Like my team is doing better than your team, your sports team, and then there's all this competition that often is unhealthy, right? And the reason why it's unhealthy is not because that it's there's motivational kind of components to it, but you quickly start seeing that people start manipulating the parameters, right? So for example, the houses, they get houses that far outreach the amount of credit, or even just, credit's a low barrier, like how much that they can actually afford, right? Like what is it that they can afford? The credit banks are going to give you a god awful lot more money than what you can afford. Um, if you look at that, you're like, wow, people make a lot of questionable decisions with this. We, the cars, people are on all these damn payments all the time, and sort of justifying these damn payments. And then, they're, I don't know, just the whole, we justify it and then we say that that is the best option often. Yet, the best option, we know what it is. You buy a car that's a couple years old, um, and that has depreciated to some degree, and then you buy it, and then you're not eating that depreciation up at the front and all of the other stuff that goes with it. You know, there is so many things that if you simply look into it, and they're very simplistic things that a lot of people know, but because we are competing, we justify it in all sorts of different ways. We justify, different techniques. We have bigger trucks. A big truck just drove by me, um, and I'm okay. I like a big truck. I like a truck, right? Like I do like it. I don't drive around in a truck because I don't need one, but that's on purpose. I don't need one. Um, and most of these big giant trucks are shinier and all get out. They're beautiful looking trucks, but man, they certainly don't get used. Um, if they're used, they're all banged up, and you don't see a banged up big giant truck. I just think like there are aspects of life that we we struggle with, right? We all struggle with these things in terms of impressing other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is part of human nature. It's part of being an organism. Is trying to impress a mate, right? Like that is a thing, and that is okay. But we need to weigh. We need to think in our heads, to what degree can we afford this impression management that we have? To what degree do we need that we can actually do this particular activity? And if you look at it, the majority, right? Um, and that includes me in various different ways as well, depending on what it actually is. But probably I sort of go on the extreme of sort of humbleness, right? Trying to impress upon other people that I'm some humble kind of person, which sounds really ridiculous, but it's true. I'm very cognizant of that. I think about that. I'm like, well, shit, am I just doing this just to impress other people? And the answer is yes. To some degree, it actually is, right? And the thing is that we have to be well aware of is to do all of this with within not within reason, but think about the calculated cost of it and really work that through. Um, and it's very hard for all of us to do because there's emotional attachment to this aspect of our life, right? And it's very difficult to do this, but that's often how we get into trouble. And often, even if you're in a couple relationship, right, like you're with somebody else, it's often the sticky points that everybody gets frustrated with because there's an emotional attachment to it. Um, and then we get, anxious about it. Or when you're with a team, the people that are going to focus on certain aspects that they sort of prioritize, that you're going to be like, well, that has nothing to do with the usefulness of this, right? But they will be very, very attached to it. And so I want you to realize this and think about this is what can you do in your life that allows you to be a little bit more freer from this? Um, questioning these things, trying to be goofy. Like it will feel goofy. It will feel all of these like really weird emotions in your heart, right? Like it does, and it's you got to question it and be okay with being goofy or being weird, where it just doesn't feel right because a lot of that stuff we're born into it, not, genetically. It might be there's some genetic component to it, but, we're born into families that prioritize different things in different ways. My family, you know, I was just fortunate enough. They prioritize very, very utilitarianism and very much just like being plain Jane. um, to their detriment sometimes, and very much so. My mom, it's to her detriment, and people that are close to me, it's often to their detriment, where they go too far on the other side, and you have to balance that, where you're thinking about, like, how do I make sure that, yes, I'm sort of playing up all of this impression management part of my life and allowing that to sort of blossom a little bit, but at the same time hold back. And I want you to think about that. What is it in your life that you just, honestly, it's just you're not managing it well because you're letting some components of it get away from you? And so just think about that. What is it in your life that you are trying to impress to other people? And I know the people that I'm probably preaching to the choir. If you're listening to this, you probably think the same way. And it's hard to convince other people. Often, people that are very emotional about things, they're never going to listen to something like this, right? They're just not. That's just not who they are. It's not in their personality, right? And their personality is very inward focused, impression management, and those kind of things. They're never going to listen to this. But I encourage you, if you are, just to have, you know, think about how you're managing your life and be okay with that in terms of either side, and really working on both sides of it. It's okay to have a little bit of impression management within reason, but really, really work on that. Think about, do you actually need it? And often the answer is no. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.